So my name's Ryan Spring. I'm the director and GIS GPS specialist for the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma Historic Preservation Department. So part of my job is basically protecting Choctaw culture, Choctaw history, and then educating my tribal members, but also people of the general community as well. My office is in Durant, Oklahoma. But I want to start off talking about some real deep Choctaw history. So to understand the mindset of the Choctaw people, to understand where Choctaw people have come from, you have to understand our origin story of where we believe our people came from. So a lot of you are familiar with the Judeo-Christian Adam and Eve story. This is our equivalent of that story. There's two different stories. I'll go over them briefly. I'll do the longer one first, and then I'll do the other one in a second. But we have the migration story and the creation story. So the migration story basically talks about that there were Choctaw people far to the northwest. I shouldn't say Choctaw people. There were native people far to the northwest. And for whatever reason, a large group of these people got together, and they decided that they needed to leave. For whatever reason, they needed to get out and find a new home that they could call their own. So two brothers stepped up to lead these people, Choctaw and Choctaw. And with them, they had a hopai. In the Choctaw language, a hopai means like a prophet or a spiritual leader of some sort. And they talked to this hopai, and they said, "We need to leave, but where do we go?" And the hopai had a staff that we call the iti fabasa, which basically means a sacred staff or a sacred pole. And this staff was imbued by God. So what the hopai would do is once the people moved out and they started their first day of journey, they didn't know where to go. So the two brothers and the hopai went out and they took that staff and they struck it into the ground. And they struck it down into the ground so hard that, the wind is not going to move it. And he said, the direction that the staff is leaning is the direction that we will march. So in the night, they all went to sleep. And during the night while they were sleeping, God, or the Creator, came and he pushed that staff towards the southeast. So when Choctaw, Choctaw, and the hopai got up and came back out, they saw that staff. They saw it was leaning towards the southeast, and they knew that was the direction they had to go. Some stories talk about them marching for 4 months. Some say they marched for 40 years. We don't really know. This story is so ancient. It's been passed down for so long. There's different variations of it. But basically, these two groups of people marched towards the southeast every night. There were two large groups. So Choctaw led one group and Choctaw led the other. And, the group of people stretched miles and miles long. But one night, because of a storm, some stories say it was a storm, some say it was a fog, some say it was a fire, and some say that it was a fight between the brothers. But the brothers got separated. Both their groups had gotten separated. So it was just Choctaw and the hopai that night, and they went to sleep. And they woke up to walk out to look at the staff, expecting it to be leaning towards the southeast like it had always been, and it was sitting straight up. The Creator was telling Choctaw and the hopai that this is your new homeland. This is where, you will rebuild. Like I said, Choctaw's group got separated, and he settled a little bit farther north of Choctaw's group. Later on, Choctaw's group later was known as the Chickasaw. Chickasaw. Choctaw's group, in reverence to the Creator, built a large mound that we call Nanewaya, which is this mound up here. And they built this mound in reverence to the Creator. And soon afterwards, they called themselves the Choctaw, which in our language is Choctaw. So this mound is still here. It's in Winston County, Mississippi. It's the sacred mound of the Choctaw people. So it's hard to talk about an equivalence to the Judeo-Christian religion. But for Choctaw people, this can be a very spiritual place. It's a very strong place. It's a place where our origins are from, where we're created from. There's another story that talks about how there's a cave just a mile away from this mound. And the cave is in the side of a large natural hill. And the Creator one day had, he had created the earth. He had created the land, the water, the plants, the animals. But he decided he wanted people to share this earth with. So the Creator reached deep into the earth, and he took clay, and he made people out of clay. And then he made a huge opening in the mound, or in this hill, which was that cave opening. And people started to walk out of the cave. And as they walked out, their skin was still wet because they're made from clay. So they laid upon the side of this hill right here. And their skin dried, and that became as ours is now. The first group of people came out, dried themselves, and marched far to the east. And they later we called them the Muskoki, or the Muskogee people. The second group of people that came out and laid upon the hillside went to the east as well, but because of a fire, they went to the north. And we call them the Chalaki, or the Cherokee people. The third group of people to come out went to the north, and we call them the Chickasha, or the Chickasaw people. The last group of people came out of the mound, and they looked back and saw that no one else was coming. The Creator had deemed that there were enough people placed upon the earth, and that there was no need for any more. And the Creator told them that this is your creation. This is the area that you were born. And as long as you stay here, you will be prosperous. So a mile away from this cave, they built Nanewaya. So Nanewaya and Nanewaya Cave are still here today. They're both owned by the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians, which is another federally recognized Choctaw tribe. They're one of our brother tribes. Well, they're the same tribe. They just have their own constitution, their own chief, their own government. But every year I get the opportunity to come out and visit the mound. I go to Mississippi to play stickball every year. And I'll talk about stickball a little bit later. But these locations here are probably, to me, the most important things that we still have today. And unlike most Native American people, we own our origin place. Other tribes don't own their spiritual areas, but we're lucky enough to. So, anyway, that's I consider that my long, boring part. I'm going to get a lot more animated now, but those stories are extremely important. Those stories have been passed down for thousands and thousands of years by Choctaw people. And I can kind of explain here in a little bit of how long they have been passed down. So Choctaw people are originally from the homelands, which is Mississippi and Alabama. It's this purple area on this map. Later on, we moved into Louisiana, Arkansas, moved into Texas, and then later were removed to Oklahoma.